Welcome into another edition of Ringside Review. I am Athan Hristodulu, and as always, joined alongside by Matt Colpitts here. Another Monday Night Raw in the books. We've got more to talk, more to discuss, some things being set up for Saturday night's main event, so plenty to get into. But Matt, we're going to start with what opened the show, which led to ultimately CM Punk and Sami Zayn are now set to clash with Braun Breaker and Seth Rollins at Saturday night's main event. Not this Saturday, but next Saturday. So honestly, this is something that it almost gives me kind of like a throwback feel is kind of how I'm going to explain this to you right now. Because when you think of Saturday night's main event back in the day, it was always these random kind of matches thrown together. And now we're getting this cool tag team match where we have CM Punk and obviously Seth Rollins have some heated rivalry. And then you have a couple of guys added to the fray with Breaker and Zayn. I like this. I like that it's like a headline match for a Saturday night's main event. It gives me that vibe, and it helps differentiate Saturday night's main event from like a typical PLE, where you're going to get like a tag team match that's going to be one of the headlines. Yeah, you'll get a championship match involved as well, maybe another singles match or two, but this is this type of stuff that we expect to get from that type of show. CM Punk opens things up calling out Heyman. Of course, Heyman, and this is something I want to ask you about too. Heyman feels like he has a little bit of like an aura to him right now where he's coming out and he's interrupting people in the middle of their promos. It almost seems like he has like some bravado working with Seth Rollins. Are you picking up what I'm putting down with that? Because there's a little bit of like the arrogance from Paul Heyman seems to be back in a way we haven't seen in a little bit.
I love it. I mean, being alongside Roman Reigns in the Tribal Chief character, he, as the wise man, he kind of took a back seat. He very much was just catering to his client at the time, and again, just took a backseat. Yes, he did plenty of mic work, but we didn't see the Paul Heyman that we're typically used to, the arrogance, as you had mentioned. So seeing him walk out on CM Punk promo this week and the prior week, like he's almost hinted as if he's going to start throwing fists himself. Yeah. I love it. I think this is the Paul Heyman that people have always loved and admired. And yeah, I do think he's just tapping back into it. I mean, after all, I know I've said it on a couple episodes before, but he's a Hall of Famer for a reason. He knows how to get by on the mic. He knows how to captivate an audience, make them, triggered, angry at them, love him. He knows how to have the crowd in the palm of his hand. And I think this is a great showcase of those skills that he has, as well as for Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker, which is why I think this heel so far duo with Paul, soon to be trio more than likely, which I'm sure we can discuss more on, is just something that I'm all for.
Yeah, it feels like it's like a nice change of pace. It reminds me of it just, again, like you were saying, with the Tribal Chief and the whole bloodline thing going on in Roman Reigns, that story with Paul Heyman, it got to the point where it felt like he had almost lost his way and everything. Like it felt like he was more anxious than anything else, and he always did a great job of doing that. Like I remember hearing the rumors about when he finally had to tell no to Solo Sikoa of acknowledging him of his tribal chief, or as his tribal chief. My goodness, there. He basically spent, I believe it was like a day and a half almost of not sleeping, so that when he was on camera that day for that segment, he looked physically drained. And I mean, he looked perfect, but that's the level that you're talking about, that Paul Heyman goes to, the work that he puts in. And now he's back to being his cocky self. He knows he has Seth. He knows he has Braun Breaker, the muscle that is basically the protector at this point for their group. I love what we're seeing from this, and I love the way it's evolving. And the fact that CM Punk and Seth Rollins are continuing to just re-up on this rivalry that they have going on while involving other people like Sami Zayn and, of course, Braun Breaker being in a faction with them now. I want to ask you this, because you kind of alluded to it a little bit here, and I know we do have some time to touch on this. Third person, potentially. It seems like Becky Lynch is going to be doing her own thing for a while, and we tossed around the idea that maybe we get ourselves the first Paul Heyman woman. Now it seems like maybe that's on hold for the time being as Becky does her own heel turn thing, and we'll touch on that a little bit as well. But any inkling, any idea so far as to what we're going to get for another member?
Yeah, man. I mean, there's personal hopes. I've seen Carmelo Hayes get thrown around, Austin Theory, a lot of those younger guys that could kind of fill that void, that role that Randy Orton had in Evolution, the
Yes.
young guy, the cocky guy. That's what this group kind of needs. Yes, you can argue that Braun Breaker is already the young guy, but at the end of the day, he is the muscle. He is kind of the protector, as you had said. So you need that kind of the snarky, cocky, kind of feels like the up-and-comer guy. This is crazy, but I feel like what is actually being pushed, and honestly, the more realistic answer here is I feel like it could be Logan Paul. Hear me out. Because
Wow.
they're inserting Jey Uso into this rivalry. The last night it was Jey, Punk, Sammy going up against, just the two of them, Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker. I feel like it could make sense if Logan does not presumably win the title at Saturday night's main event. Where does it go from here? He could fill that void. Now, will he actually stick to it and be a full-timer? To be determined. But I feel like where he's already in a program with Jey Uso, Jey's involved with this rivalry, I feel like that's actually the logical choice and what they're setting up for. But for me, I personally really want to see like an Austin Theory or a
Wow.
Carmelo Hayes.
Man, you almost made my jaw hit the floor with that one. A Logan Paul, and then coming up with like a good tie-in as well. Could Logan Paul be the next Paul Heyman guy? And also, shout out to you because last week, very quickly, you called the eventual Jey Uso Logan Paul Saturday night's main event matchup there. We've got to make sure we give you the credit for that. But wow, floored me with that. But like, yeah, with the tie-in and everything going on, what a like shot from left field that would be. So yeah, man, Logan Paul. It's not something I haven't put a ton of thought in since we got the initial reveal of the group, and like it's just been something in the back of my mind, but not something I put a ton of thought in. But wow, what a way to connect some dots. All right, so Logan Paul, the next Paul Heyman guy. Shout out Matt if he calls that. We'll definitely run that back if it ends up being the case. Next thing we got to jump on to, we alluded to this already too, Becky Lynch continuing to basically, this is like the continuing to try and turn heel saga for Becky Lynch here, trying her absolute best to get everyone to hate her, coming off the loss to Lyra Valkyria in what was a weird kind of roll-up victory, I thought, for the end of that match. I didn't think the match actually ended the way it did. It was kind of a weird pinfall in my eyes because you had like Lyra hanging on her nose. It just looked like a weak pinfall for what the situation called for. But Becky basically letting everyone know she's here for nobody but herself, and she's kind of feeding into what there were like rumors surrounding her character backstage and how she is about herself, and it seems like she's trying to tap into that here. And I want to ask for your opinion, as I have the last few weeks, about this. I will say I do like this angle specifically because we're tapping into real life conversation that is happening surrounding her in her past prior to her departure for a little bit before she made her eventual return. Is this the route that she needs to go? Because I like it. I like that she's out in the open now. I'm the man. It's about me. I want to win. Screw everyone else, essentially. This is about me. Is that what we're kind of looking for here? Is this the angle you think she needs to take?
Yes, I do. And I think what's most important when it comes to Becky is going to be the execution. Now, obviously, she's a 4-horsewoman. She knows what she's doing. But I look at, John Cena's heel turn, incredible. Like, polarizing, like the moments. But I feel like the execution that followed kind of was falling flat. It was the same thing. Cena came out, just dogged on whatever city he was in the fans, and then it was just the same old shtick. I feel like slowly, I know Becky, it's a much newer situation, but it's kind of taking that route where she's just going to come out, give that whole speech that you said, like, I'm the man, I'm all for myself, which I think is the right way to do it. I think Becky should be a heel at this point in her career. She should be putting over the younger talent, incredible. But I just don't want to hear the same promo 5 weeks in a row, kind of like we have with Cena. So I'm hoping that, Bayley gets involved or Lyra. Like, I don't know. I need some kind of spark, some kind of action, again, to execute this properly. But in terms of the overall concept and idea of Becky being a heel and taking this route, yeah, it makes absolutely the most sense to me.
Yeah, I think this was kind of what I needed to at least like the direction that this is going. I wasn't a real big fan of some of the promos that we had leading up to just the eventual matchup with Lyra this past weekend, and her just basically trying to blast everyone. We're getting like tangible explanation now. This stage in her career, I want it to be about me. It's about my legacy. It's about being better than everyone else. I think that makes the most sense logically for her, because just having her come out last week with a bunch of garbage and recycling jokes and basically calling everyone out but the trash man, like it felt corny and forced, I guess is the best way you can put it. And wrestling is no stranger to corny and forced things. Just ask Roman Reigns and some of the things he dealt with early on in his career. So I'm glad that they're basically tapping into what people have been talking about on the internet about her for the last couple of years or so prior to her taking that time off. I think this is the right direction, but like you said, execution is everything here. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what she does going forward. And hopefully, like you said, a spark whether it's Bayley coming back and maybe them having something. But at this point now, we need that trigger that really sets things in motion. Last thing we're going to jump into here, Braun Breaker and Jey Uso for next week. Now, we touched on, obviously, the matchup at Saturday night's main event, but this will be happening beforehand. Non-title contest, but it is going to be Jey and Breaker. We saw Braun Breaker attack Jey Uso in the back, in the middle of another backstage segment, and of course, prior to that, we had the conversation between Seth and Braun Breaker that could have potentially led to this. There's no title in the foreseeable future for Seth Rollins. There's nothing that really ties Jey Uso with what's going on with Seth Rollins and his crew at this current moment here, but they're keeping them involved and tethered together with this attack here. Does this maybe tie into like that Logan Paul turn you're talking about, where maybe he ends up being a Paul Heyman guy? Like, it just kind of felt random. Like, I thought we were maybe moving on from this, at least for the time being, because Seth Rollins is a little bit busy at the current moment and, just failed to capture the title not too long ago himself on Monday night. And then you also have Gunther explaining outright to Jey Uso, whether it's you or Logan Paul, I have a match with you right at the beginning of June on Monday Night Raw. So, like, we're keeping a lot of things tethered together here, but there's a lot of other directions that are being set up at the same time. So, like, I'm just trying to sift my way through all the tying together we have, the knots, I guess you should say.
Yeah, man. I mean, just watching last night, I'm a big Jey Uso fan. I wanted him to win the title. I'm all for it. The whole entrance, I love it. But with that being said, I think he appeared on the show maybe 4 or 5 times, which is crazy. You think about someone like Austin Theory, who I named earlier, like, can't even get on the show.
Yeah.
Then you have your champ. Again, he is the champ, but 4 or 5 times, all these different segments, it does feel like a lot. And I also kind of agree with how you summarized it, that where are they kind of leading with this? That's why I feel like my Logan Paul theory has kind of arised in my mental, because I'm like, maybe that's the whole tie-in. Maybe it is going to lead to this new member. I feel like all of this just needs some kind of big payoff. Kind of just like Becky needs the good execution. I think this Seth Rollins group faction storyline needs a big payoff, which hopefully is leading soon, whether it's at Saturday night's main event or the Gunther match, whatever it is. I think you need a new member. I think either Jey needs to kind of split off and focus back on Gunther, or a new challenger. Like, I don't see it being this kind of like Venn diagram, like crazy, like all these different branches, like different storylines going on for too much longer. I feel like it's just got to be leading up to a big payoff. I'm going to stick with the whole Logan Paul theory. But, I don't know. Maybe it's also just as simple as, like, a reminder, like, hey, we want Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker to be, like, the storyline on Raw right now. We're going to just, almost like when Judgment Day got all the overexposure. Like, just overexpose them and just kind of shove it down your throat, which, I mean, it's working. It's not like the crowd's turning on them. But, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely been a little confusing. I'm excited to see where it goes, but I don't foresee it lasting in this kind of stage for too much longer.
Yeah, it's just, like you said, Jey Uso seems like he's got his hand in everything right now, and maybe it's just kind of depicting him, and this is something I kind of thought of on the spot, is like maybe it's just depicting him as the guy that nobody is really taking that seriously, so everyone's gunning for him because they feel like the championship itself is vulnerable being in the arms of Jey Uso and around his waist. So maybe it's something like that they're trying to set up, where if you have somebody like a John Cena, not necessarily everyone is going to be so willing to be gunning after him because they know who he is and what he brings to the table. But it just feels like everyone right now has no problem going after Jey Uso, and everyone that's going after him, in a sense, is putting him in a light of like, we don't take him that kind of serious. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that's what they're trying to do here. We'll have to see, though. But that'll do it for another edition of Ringside Review. As always, if you made it to the end, greatly appreciate it. From me, from Matt, thank you all. We'll see y'all next time.